Today we're joined by Allayne Webster, the author of most recent publication, which is That Thing I Did. Allayne, thank you so much for sitting down to speak with Lavoisier about your most recent, book baby.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you very much for having me. I can see it there behind you, very perfectly placed.
It's a little bit, the cover is a little bit battered because I was reading it like all across the house. So it was like, got squished under the couch cushions. But it, the mark of a very well-loved book. So my first question is, the book has a lot going on within it. Like there's an ensemble cast, there's various locations. But can you tell us a little bit about what at the core is the underpinning theme, idea, or message?
Sure. So, really, at the end of the day, it's an essay on life and death and love and what the point to it all is. At the absolute core of it, I suppose what really drove it was that I nearly died 6 years ago. I was in intensive care for 5 weeks. And it wasn't the first time I'd always died. I think it was the third time. So I guess, when you're in that situation, you have a lot of time and, you're bed bound and you can't go anywhere. But you do, your mind's working perfectly fine. You have a lot of time to ruminate on what on earth is it all for? What have I done already? What do I want to do? Who have I said what to? And, what do I still want to say? I think within this, I was really thinking through a lot of that. And also too, I think, I'm not sure of how many years I've actually been on Facebook. It's a long time, but obviously at the centre of this story is a Facebook post that goes a little bit awry, goes wrong, and a lot of people make lots of judgments. But for me, over the years, I've witnessed work colleagues, people die, and people die that I was connected to, and then subsequently people writing to them after the fact as if they were still alive and talking to them through Facebook as if they were still alive. So there's a lot of that built into this. Again, our whole way of dealing with life and death. And the final thing to say about it is also true, at the core of this novel is a teen suicide. And so I'm really talking about what happens after the fact. And the people left behind, and how do they process that without answers and being able to ask, and if there was no note or anything like that, how do they make sense of that? And of course, there's all the what ifs of had I done this, had I done that, could that have changed the outcome? So, when I was writing it, I was actually thinking there's numerous people throughout my life that I've known that have taken their own lives. But when I was finishing writing this, my son lost his best friend. He took his life. And that was deeply painful because I'd known Jed for his whole life, and it really cemented for me the need to have stories like this out there. So yeah, there you go, a lot packed into it.
Yeah, there is. And I think it's worth noting that while these stories are actually really, really, really important to tell and to read about, and to to help us as a society grapple with things that I think in many ways don't make sense for so many reasons, and come packed up with so much grief. Writing about them, especially when you're drawing on personal experience, is such a, and I don't like to use the word brave, but it's not brave to write about it, but it's brave to write about it with the intent to share it with the world. So yeah. I think you should really be commended for that, Allayne, for taking personal experiences and putting them into the world in a way that is very much designed to, I think it's really obviously designed to help people and to help them understand from a variety of perspectives.
Absolutely, yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for sharing, not only as an answer, but also in your writing. I think off the basis of that, I'm really interested to hear you talk about Daisy, who is the oldest character in the text. And I'm really curious to know if she is the one, despite the fact that Taylor, it's narrated in first person perspective from Taylor, who is 17 years old. If it's actually Daisy who often carries your authorial voice.
Yes.
Probably more so in her moments of wisdom, but maybe in her more, I said potty now.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, she is. Yeah.
So I'm really curious about the decision to make. She's an octogenarian, isn't she? She's in her 80s or her 70s.
Yeah, I think yes, she's pushing that. She's 77, I think I said.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's quite unusual to see a character in print who's that age, but also that sexual and that rude and that prone to flinging around a profanity or five.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit to your decision to craft her in that particular way, and
Absolutely.
where the authorial voice works through that?
Yeah, sure. So Daisy, by the way, is my favorite character in the book. I mean, I love all of them in their own way, but Daisy, I just had so much fun writing. So Daisy, I think, comes from a place, all of these characters are born out of something that you've experienced and witnessed or been part of. And I think if I really think hard about it, some of her comes from back when I was like 15 years old and first entered the workforce in casual jobs and, worked in service stations, worked in pubs and bakeries and places like that. And I encountered women in their 60s, early 70s, who'd grown up in a completely different era, who were really salt of the earth women. I had a rural background, so these women were hard labour women, hard backgrounds, and they were really forthcoming in their opinions, and they had to be, because they had to give as good as they got. They were working behind bars and pubs and copping a lot of shit, excuse the word for it, over the bar and in service roles, and they just had to know how to shoot back and fire back. So I think being witness to that, and at the same time they were incredibly protective and loving of young girls, and I just felt mothered, I think, by every single one of them that I was exposed to, because they were so, they'd had enough crap from men, and so they were going to make sure that they watched over you and looked after you too. So there's a lot of that in there. My grandmother, or my nana, she was a different kettle of fish, in that she wasn't like a hard living kind of woman. In fact, she was very educated. She was university educated, did her honours in music back in the day when they didn't. But she always called herself a Nick. She said, I'm a bit of a Nick, I'm a bit naughty. And so she was always being cheeky, always telling me bad jokes, always, being rude when she shouldn't. And one of my favourite stories from my childhood is that she was sitting on a deck chair and she had a beer in one hand and she was nursing me in the other, and the deck chair gave out from underneath her and she went down, and she was very proud of the fact she never dropped me or the beer. So, there was these beautiful stories that I grew up with. And so I think they all went into Daisy. And without giving too much away, Daisy pretty much gets her own back in the end, and that's what I wanted. And at the same time too, she's very mothering of Chloe in the story, and Chloe is missing that from her life, and she needs it, and she gets it from Daisy. So I think we underestimate the interactions that we have with people in our lives, no matter how short they're in our lives. And in this book, Daisy's in Chloe's life for only a couple of days, but boy, does she make a hell of a difference to Chloe and how Chloe feels about herself. So, yeah. So, and the final thing to say is that, we talk about Daisy being quite sexual as well. You know, she's not dead yet. You know, like I think we relegate our older society. We're one of the, you know, in the Western society, we're one of these. We don't give enough credit to our older people and what they've been through and what they can teach us and be part of. One of my favourite shows on the ABC is that Old People's Home for 4-year-olds. Yeah. So there's not enough of that. And so our attitudes are a bit skewed, I think. And I think it's really important to portray old people as real, you know, multifaceted, multi-layered people. And not, you know, just the old person that bakes a cake, you know, like,
Yeah.